Craig. Welcome, Craig. Thanks very much for offering to do this for us today.
No problem, Dawn. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Craig Young. I'm Program Director on the Equip program, the Evolve program. We're talking about Equip today. Later on, I'll be joined by my colleague, Amy Brown, the business cluster lead, business change cluster lead as well. Can I just double check everybody can see that screen okay? I can see nods. Yeah, perfect. Yes. So just a few things to work through today. So just probably thought I'd ask a bunch of questions. This is an update on the Equip program. So I thought I'd start off with the baselines of what is Equip, then what's the progress to date, what are the timelines going forward, what will those changes mean to me, what's the benefits of this, why are we doing all of this, and what's the communication plans, how are we going to find out more, when are we going to find out more, how it's all going to tie together. So that's the questions we'll be working through today. So we'll start off with what is Equip. So Equip, I'm sure you're aware, but if not, we're replacing the HRPTS and FPSL systems with a single cloud-based solution for HR, payroll, finance, and PALs. And so we're kind of taking HSC systems across all the organizations that use, and then we're moving them all into Oracle Fusion Cloud. The reason we're doing that is so we get simplified workflow, simplified processes, better user experience, and the big thing about moving it from where we currently have it onto a cloud system is then we get 10 years of continuous system improvement. So Oracle will be dropping every 3 months new functionality, and the pipeline for those that are looking into the Oracle products is extremely thick. So there's new the AI modules coming on stream, new functionality coming on stream that we get access to throughout the life then of the system running. Oracle Fusion, for those that follow Gartner, they're in the Magic Quadrant. They're that top right quadrant, and the sort of the best of breed ERP system we can hope for. So we're moving across and enabling our HR, payroll, finance, and PALs. So we're simplifying those processes and moving them all on, enabling with an application called Oracle Cloud. We're implementing it through a pretty standard cloud implementation partnership. We've got HSC and the teams inside of HSC. So we've got a program team, we've got teams working all across the various trusts and arm's length bodies to configuring the system. We have Oracle as our system supplier. We have EY and TCS working together as our system integrator, so they're making sure the Oracle product works for ourselves. And then we have Deloitte as our client-side partner. So Deloitte are just advising us through the whole process to make sure that what we're doing matches what we need to do, and bringing their expertise to bear on this process. And then just so we're aware, the governance structure then also just around that. We've got the program board at the top, as you expect, and then two sort of halves to the governance. Delivery board, making sure that we're doing all the things, so got all the resources correct, the people, the finance aspects, and then that design authority, making sure we're designing those processes correctly. And just to kind of give you a flavour on that program board, I think you'll see there, we've got members from the Department of Health, the Belfast Trust, all the trusts as you would expect, DHCNI and our suppliers, and NIMDA there, the Chief Executive of NIMDA, Mark McCary, representing the arm's length bodies as well. That insurance of we're getting the correct blend of program team, suppliers, users, all then radiates down throughout the rest of that governance process as well. And then the final big thing to highlight is that we're following a process of adopt, not adapt. If you're familiar with the Epic and Compass rollout, this was very similar. We got Oracle has built world-class processes into their system, and then the more we then unify and simplify and adopt those processes, the more straightforward the use of the system is going forward, especially using those upgrade pathways. So that's a very quick whistle stop tour. I know I've presented before on what Equip is. I'm going into a lot more depth in that. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about the history, the strategy, and everything else it ties into, there's another digital dispatches that I've done previously, maybe about 12 digital dispatches ago. So if you watch that, I'll give you a bit more of an in-depth overview. I just wanted to give a quick canter through where we are so we're all on the same page, and really dive into what's changed since the last time I gave you this update. So what's the progress to date? There's been a lot of progress, a lot of hard work has gone into getting the program moving forward. We have had, to make the program move forward, we have to make decisions. We make decisions to make the system be configured, and then that system configuration then is what drives how we do all that delivery moving forward. So we have had to make 1,500, just over 1,500 decisions are required. That's things like how does the process work. Of those, there's 82 decisions remaining. Okay, so we've gone through hundreds of workshops, literally hundreds of workshops, hundreds of people involved all across HSC. The output of all those then is these key decisions, which then our system integrator then goes away and builds the system based upon what we're telling it to do. And the vast majority of those decisions have been those that decision to adopt the system rather than adapt it. And therefore that's really pleasing progress across it. And we do that through workshops. So within the discovery phase, and I'll talk you through the phases in one moment, within the discovery phase, we had 66 workshops and 1,500 documents that have been created really for a supplier for our current processes. So that was helping them discover what all was required to do. And then that design and build phase, we've had over 700 workshops to date. We're still sort of finalizing out areas of design and build, but there's one screen grab of one workshop of the 700 that has been there. So in any given workshop, we have people coming across from across the HSC, from across the program team, from across the suppliers, and we're all working together to try to make these solutions for HSC. Now, if you think about that in terms of hundreds of person hours being poured into this and significant effort across the entirety of HSC, it's sometimes when you sit back and look at it, it is a wonder for how much effort and significant inputs going into this. And so people are taking it seriously, as we should, and it's really reassuring in that way. So I just want to take a moment to thank everybody on the call, either directly involved in those workshops, directly involved in decisions, directly involved in that governance, directly involved in all of the other areas that we need to do, and also then their colleagues who are covering them to make them be able to do those things as well. So I thank you. And as we'll see in a moment, after we make those decisions and EYTCS build our system for us, configure our system for us, unit testing in certain areas has commenced. That's where we're kind of building up all the individual units. Those units are now being checked over. Testing has begun to see that is that operating as we hoped it would be. Then there'll be subsequent testing, as we'll see in one moment. So lots of progress to date. So if that's the progress, what are the timelines that we're looking at? So here's the plan on a page. Now there's a lot of detail on that, which I'm not intending to go through. I'm happy if you want to do any follow-up calls and I can explain the difference between a DM3A and a SIT2. However, I think for what we're talking about today, if I just put a bit of like layering on top of that, you'll see there's really 3 phases to this program. If we look from April 25 to prior to April 25, we're doing all the procurement, the business case, and a lot of really good pre-work. But for sort of April 25 onwards, through till about the middle of this month, end of next month, it's design of builds phase. That's where we kind of design the system, make sure it's all working correctly, build as we would see. Then from the start of September, the testing phase, testing readiness phase, which will last until September 26th, then kicks in. That's where we go through multiple different types of testing. So we've got the unit testing ongoing at the moment, then we kind of have the integration test to check the system all hangs together, and then eventually the user acceptance testing to check that the end users are happy with how the system all hangs together. Then while that is sort of tailing off, the training and go live pieces kick off from June 26 really onwards all the way through. So 3 real big phases, but if I can't go into a little bit more detail, but less than the details behind, it kind of looks like this. So if we're kind of just starting from November 25, design and build is still ongoing, but then there's sort of 5 major phases left. We've got the start off the sort of SIT elements of this coming through November 25 through into 26. We've got the system testing through winter and spring, UAT kicking off in February, and really based around 2 different key go lives. One is 1st of September 26, which is our finance and PALS aspects, and the 1st of November 26, which is HR and payroll. Now you can see 2 different releases then, of Go Live 1 and Go Live 2. So that's these areas in the star. Following a Go Live is the hypercare phase, where we'll have additional hands-on care to make sure this is all going correctly. And then that's where it goes into normal operations afterwards. So if we work backwards, we've got the hypercare, we've got the Go Lives, and then we have these things, cutover testing. So cutovers where we're just checking all of the data is working correctly. We start to work towards how do we move from the old systems on the new systems in a safe way. And then all that happening in parallel to the training ongoing. So again, you'll kind of see the general pattern is testing. Then we got going cut over towards the go lives and then hypercare. So the key dates, though, if the takeaway from today is just making sure that we're aware of those key dates. 1st of September 26 and 1st of November 26. That's what we're aiming for our go lives. So if that's our timescales, that means that we've got changes to make. So we've got changes to make across HSC to make this all happen, make this all work. At this point, I'm going to ask my colleague Amy Brown to join us. Amy leads up the business change cluster, and she's just going to talk us through what the changes mean and then the benefits of all these changes. Amy.
Thanks, Craig, and great to meet everyone. As Craig mentioned, I joined the programme earlier on this year, and I sit across our change, training, benefits, communications, and engagement team. So it's been really great to get involved in the EQUIP programme. But if we just jump on to the next slide, I just wanted to introduce some of the key elements of the business change work that we've been conducting to date. So as Craig mentioned, we've been in the design and build stage of the programme, and that's really looking at how does the current systems work today, and then looking at the Oracle system and how is that going to work in the future, and ultimately what the business change cluster have really been focusing in on the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see our change management approach. The point one on that, which is one of the critical elements of helping support not just the implementation of the new technology, but helping bring everyone within the organisation on that journey of what does it mean for me, is conducting our change impact assessments. So that's really taking into consideration that how things are done today, how things need to be done in the future. And that really starts to help us plan out what are the key activities we need to do across the organisation to get people ready, willing and able to be able to actually use the new system in the new world. There are other elements of our change management approach. So we're also looking at how we're working with the leaders across the organisation to make sure that they understand, one, why this needs to be done, but two, also to help support some of the changes that we're going to have to need to enact across the organisations themselves. Point three on that you'll see is our change agent network. So that's really looking at how do we get support from the organisations and from the people actually on the ground who are going to be impacted by these changes. And that's throughout the planning of the programme. So as we start to understand and unfold what these changes are, it's really starting to test them with the organisation and really helping to understand, what's the training we need to conduct there, what are the behaviours and ways of working that people might need to think or do in a different way to be able to operate in the new system. Point four is another really key point around change readiness. So as Craig kind of moved through that timeline right to left there at the end, we take the same approach from a readiness perspective. What are all the things that we need to have from a people perspective in place? What skills do they need to have? What knowledge and awareness do they need to have at that point of go live? And what we do as part of that readiness is we plan the whole way through the programme to understand what activities have taken place. Are they landing? Are people starting to understand and be able to think in the new way? And ultimately, is there other things that we need to do to make sure that we are landing the change as we start to hit that cutover and go live period, and then into hypercare itself as well? And that feeds into how do we actually manage the adoption of that change? So how are people actually performing in the new system? So that's a really key element to plan out throughout the programme, but really comes into play post go live as well. A second key element I wanted to touch on today was on training. Obviously, with a new system comes training requirements for everyone across the organisation, and that will vary across different elements. So whilst we're in the design and build stage, we've really been focusing in on understanding what is the training approach we're going to take for the programme, starting to build out based on those changes, what is that curriculum and plan, and what are the needs of the different stakeholder groups and the different segmentation of those stakeholders and audiences of what is it, what are the best ways that training are going to be delivered, how are people going to absorb that information in a timely manner throughout the duration of the programme, and making sure that it's fit for purpose. So training's been a really key element that we've been looking at this current point in time as well, and then supported. All of that activity is supported by our comms and our engagement work stream as well. So that's really starting to, at this point in time, it's starting to increase the awareness of what is the EQUIP programme, where are we, but we will slowly start to move in the coming months into getting more detailed. What does that mean for specific teams, and start engaging with specific organisations as well as to what are the actual key changes coming your way based on that system across the different functional areas. The other key points just to call out from our business change approach here really is that ultimately it is really critical to the programme, and we're giving a really good focus in on the whole change and people element of it, and want to ensure that all staff are supported throughout the transition. We have done benchmarking against other large-scale ERPs as part of this across the public sector, but also probably more beneficially, we've been engaging with other programs across the organisation, so in particular the likes of Encompass, just to make sure that we're learning those lessons of what's worked well before and what hasn't previously. If we jump on to the next slide to just touch a little bit more on, I've kind of covered it throughout touching on those areas, but it's just really to re-emphasize how are we actually managing the change. So as I mentioned, we're focusing in at the minute on making sure we understand the stakeholder landscape and who will actually be affected by that change alongside those change impacts. We ultimately use all of that information that we gather to feed into what are the plans, and how do we actually start to look at the interventions, as we call them, which is around the different types of communications, the different types of training and the different types of engagement to support all stakeholders that are going to be impacted by the change. And that plan ultimately is what informs how we track our readiness. And the readiness elements, feed across the engagement, the communications, the training, and we make sure, I suppose this kind of shows it as a sequential approach ever so slightly, but the reality is it's constantly being iterated, and we are learning lessons throughout the programme, taking the feedback from the readiness structures and those change agents to make sure that we are tailoring our approach to suit the organisation and make sure that the change is actually landing. Ultimately, that is our key change journey, but what are the benefits and what are the reasons that we're doing that? So great, Craig. If we jump on to the next few slides.
Sorry about that, Amy.
No, it was perfect timing. So what are actually the benefits of this? So if we jump to the next slide, ultimately the Oracle Fusion system is best practice within the industry itself, and it really does look at providing updated functionality and a really improved user experience. So there are overall benefits when you are taking on a new modern solution like this, and we've noted some on the slide here, but getting those new interfaces that are intuitive and have good accessible layout and design that really puts those users at the forefront of using the system, so very user-friendly interface. The other benefit is ultimately it's one system, so there's faster, easier access to information, and one of the big benefits being that there's single sign-on, so not having to remember multiple passwords. One of the key benefits of the Oracle system is better access to system training, and one of the good benefits of Oracle itself is Oracle Guided Learning, which ultimately is a in-prompt tool that sits within the system that helps guide users. If you have a little question mark on something, it will help prompt up what are the next steps. So that really helps with embedding into the new ways of working and access to understanding what needs filled out and why through the intuitive use of the system. Other things in there around shorter time to hire, easier requests to be able to apply for the likes of training and also to complete appraisals, and then also streamlined administration. So, at the minute, understanding that there's some lengthy processes with regards to things like why is that word not coming to me? Submitting your expenses. So ultimately looking at some of those real benefits of quicker, faster processes and administration. If we jump on to the next slide, though, what beyond those kind of general benefits, what we have been doing as we've been working through the design and build stage of the programme and looking at those changes, we've been really starting to focus in on what are some of the actual benefits across the different areas that are going to receive the change, like finance, HR and recruitment. So we've called out a couple on this slide, but really wanted to focus in on what does this actually start to mean for people, and really capturing that data at one source is a really big benefit, and with having end-to-end processes. So for example, we've got there on the right-hand side, employee records, when people get a new assignment will no longer need to be created, and that's based on having that one source of data. Again, a huge benefit for the organisation based on multiple assignments. We've got a reduction in manual inputs and some elimination of off-system working. So the example there is that fixed assets are created automatically from invoices, so that reduces manual keying or spreadsheet uploads. And then last but not least, ultimately just better system performance comes with the Oracle platform. and that includes things like during payroll processing, staff will no longer be locked out of the system. So what we're really doing at the minute is starting to get into the detail of those benefits throughout the design stage and continuing to assess if there are additional benefits. We've obviously identified some right up front, but we continue to assess those benefits, and they will form part of that key communication activity that we'll be starting to conduct in the coming months that we mentioned, in making sure people understand why is this good? This is a good change. Why is it that we need to do this? What are the key things that are going to help us, and how are we going to get there? I think at that point then, Craig, I will hand back over to you and you can touch a bit more on what the actual communications plan is.
Yeah, thanks very much, Amy. It's always one of these interesting things when we have to prepare for a presentation like this. So obviously we've got about half an hour or so to talk, and then any Q's and A's. And there's a sort of like a depth of data that Amy has around those benefits. So what we're just trying to do there is just call some of the examples, some of the high level areas, but there are plenty more depth in there. So feel free to follow up with us directly if there's any queries or questions in those areas as well. But in terms of the comms plan, so how are we going to find out some more? What's going to happen? We're at this point now where we have been engaging on any given day. There's a couple hundred people working on this program across HSC. But we need to start ramping up the comms for the 90,000 odd staff that will be using this system at the end of the day. So the approach that we take, it's a bit of a multi-layered approach. We've started doing some of this. More of it will start to happening more often. So we've got the roadshows, briefings, and events that will be coming up. Quarterly newsletters will keep coming through. We've got the change in readiness, so all those impact validations, the planning, what Amy was just highlighting there a moment ago. We've got the SharePoint site up and running. On there is some videos. We are planning in the very near future to have some demos of the system videos up on there already. Some of them exist. We're just waiting for the build to kind of get a little bit more mature in areas to start, so people can actually see what the system looks like being worked through. And then we've got the governance around that in terms of all those change governance, the readiness group, BSF, FDG, and then applying the lessons learned from Encompass, NIPACs, and all the other major programs that have gone before us. Then the local change groups inside of each trust as well being set up in the near future to kind of make sure these are all sort of coordinating, pulling together towards that same end goal. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that we're kind of kicking off. The first workshop actually is next week for the starting to plan as we move out of this sort of the readiness out and into the testing and start to plan beyond testing. We will be replicating the Go Live Readiness Assessment that a lot of people in this call will be familiar with from the Encompass launches. It worked very well. So we'll be adapting that process and bringing it in as well. So for a lot of people who are familiar with that process then will kick off as we move out of testing and towards those Go Live areas too. Just then in terms of there's some, the comms team put together some sort of examples of where that collaboration is happening. You can see us out and about, moving through the warehouses and through Nikon. So we are in and around and engaged across the HSC with the newsletters all coming through and about. I will fire in the link in a moment, or if one of the team is on the call at the moment, if you're able to fire in the link to the SharePoint site too, then on that site you'll find there's introduction there. You see Karen there, introduction from Karen, but also then a lot of the other areas that we're talking about, and that's where the majority of the information. It's actually the first port of call really for the information as that sort of gathers up and takes away. So, Dawn, as promised, I'll give you about a 30-minute talk. So it's past, so it's bang on the 30 minutes. And Amy and I are happy to take any questions that anybody would have.
The floor, anyone wants to put their hand up or just unmute themselves and ask Amy or Craig, by all means, go ahead. Okay, there's a question in the chat there. First, Craig, and it's basically about the functionality of the new system. Does it have pop-ups when something moves to your work list?
Yeah. So, Alistair, what I would, yes, in terms of, I suppose there's two things. It's coming from the systems that we have. I think it's fair to say that a lot of people would have some issues with how HR-PTS hangs together. So they'll be, I think, somewhat glad to see a slightly different system configuration coming through. In terms of that, yes, it is a lot more intuitive and a lot more easy to use. What I would suggest is that we are, the demo videos there will probably give you a much better demonstration than what I'll be able to describe to you orally. We've held off from having demo videos on today just for a few different reasons in the background, but the demo videos will be on the intranet site, and I'll kind of show you some of that functionality pieces. So hopefully that's not avoiding the question, but kind of give you a bit of a reassurance, I suppose, more than anything else.
Pippa has her hand up there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Pippa, loud and clear.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, I was just about to post it in the chat, but just a couple of questions, and they probably are a little bit granular and they may come out over time. But one was just a query around, would there be any planned interface with Encompass? I'm thinking specifically around things like travel that we can capture on Rover and potentially then at least mirror what that kind of input would look like from an equipped perspective to really make it more streamlined for staff. And the second question was around, I know that there had been consideration in the very early days about the LMS. Is that just staff facing? Because we had thought, you know, it would be fantastic to have something that we could also build training in for service users and to be able to kind of capture that information as well, because we don't have that anywhere else really good within the system. So very granular questions, I realize, but just they were things that were kind of coming up in conversation as we are getting a little bit more skilled within Encompass as well.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Pippa. I suppose the answer to the first question around the sort of sharing interfaces across with Encompass as well. I suppose if we look back of where we were a few years ago compared to where we will be in a couple of years' time, you know, if we go back a number of years, we've got you know, multiple data systems across for the clinical systems, and similarly on the, while HR-PTS was a single instance, there's really how it was configured was very different, or sorry, significantly different across a number of organizations. And we'll end up with a single data source for both of those areas. The need to sort of like mix that data together is, you know, that undoubtedly, you know, the future is the data those two systems hold, and how we sort of merge those data and how we kind of extract those data to make value from those data is absolutely part of, I think, both Encompass's and Equip's need for what that looks like. That post go live and pushing all the way through over the years to come. So I think it's a very exciting piece of it, of the whole puzzle. In terms of the LMS piece, Amy, could you have anything to add on the LMS and where we are going with that?
Yeah, from an LMS perspective, my understanding, but I will take it away, Pippa, and come back to you, is that it is internal facing, as you need to have an HSCNI login to be able to get into it. So it'll all be based on role-based permissions, but I am happy to take that one away and come back and just check that.
Yeah, that would kind of be worth feeling out even from a student perspective as well, because obviously they may not have well, the ability to be able to access training prior to getting that would be useful too. So a few things even to think about that. I know how beneficial it would be around, you know, that public health messaging and no real way of being able to have an area where you can store that information and reliably understand the activity against it. So just a food for thought. Thank you.
No problem, thanks, Pippa. Thanks for the question, Pippa.
Jennifer's actually put one in the chat there that I had written down here to ask, and it's can it be accessed by mobile devices? Is there plans to have an app or anything like that too?
So the Oracle Fusion application itself is also mobile native on the end piece. So, you know, you can use that on a mobile app as in the application works. The next question is the technical enablement of that. Oh, sorry, there's someone coming in there in the background. Oh, could I suggest you just want to double check you're on mute before we hear something we don't want to hear?
Guys, can you all check you're on mute, please? Yeah. I'm trying to see who it is.
Yeah. I almost started, there we are, I think that's gone now. I almost started singing a song because I was a little bit concerned about to hear some patient data there. So we're all right though, we're all right. Sorry, mobile phones is what we're talking about. So yes, the application itself is mobile native. The next question then becomes the technical enablement of that and the policy enablement of that. So those two areas are being worked through at the moment. So there's nothing to stop us doing it from the application allows us to do it. It's just that technical and policy piece, and there's currently work ongoing in that area to finalise that.
Okay, thank you. So Ronan, how will parallel systems work? Inpatient nurses with online rota, that is record of hours, annual leave, special leave and training?
Yeah, so I suppose here we're really in the question, if I'm reading this right, Ronan, is that we're really in the question of that cutover period. You know, will there be a period of time where we've got these systems going live? There'll be a period of time where we've got go live 1, and then a period of time with go live 2, and how do we kind of keep all this data in sync, and how do we keep these things all moving forward? We have a whole cutover plan to be created. There is a full-time cutover lead that started 2 weeks ago, which is around about when you want the person to be starting in that sort of role. You know, want to start well in advance of what you need that person. For those, it's actually another Craig Young. For those who've worked on the LIMS program, it's the Craig Young that worked on that doing the cutover is coming across and working on this as well. So we're there in the background working through all that. And absolutely, the avoidance of duplicates of tasks, for those not seeing chat rooms asking about, absolutely. So what we are trying to design all that around those principles. How do we make sure that we're doing this on that cutover period that exists there for a few months? How do we do that in a way that minimizes, hopefully to the point of 0, but minimizes any impact on the staff during that cutover period? And how do we make sure those two different systems stay in sync? And ultimately, if you kind of think about where a lot of that data ends up in, the key thing is a lot of it will end up through into the payroll systems where you'll see any errors. So we want to make sure that we've got all that data on the cutover plan all well in and tested to minimize those impacts so that the feed up into those payroll systems, as well as just generally getting it correct, are all there. So there will be more details coming in all those areas as we get really into the details, but hopefully just for reassurance purposes, there's a full-time role and a team and an entire plan and strategy in and around that area still to come. No problem.
That's Linda.
Apologies, I'm coming from this from a personal perspective. The engagement with suppliers who use our current FPL, has that been planned and started?
Yes, yes. The short version, yes. Longer version, yes. We've been doing that for a period of time, and especially around just sort of making contingency plans as well in place and extracting the data on how that all happens. So there are work ongoing, a lot of activity happening inside of the teams, inside of Roger's team, Rachel's team. So we're really appreciative to those guys for all the hard work going in the background. So there is, that activity has kicked off, Linda, and it's been working well in the background to date.
Good to hear.
No worries.
There's no further questions in the chat.
Nope. No problem. And which gets, as always, thank you very much to Kieran. Kieran fired in the link onto the intranet page. On there, you'll find the contact details for the team. It is a massive program. It is as big as a program can get, and is impacting 90,000 staff. So it is a complex a program as you can get as well. So there will be a lot of very specific questions people have, and I understand that completely. As we move forward in the process, the detail is emerging and will emerge further still as we get through that, and there'll be a lot more information then to follow. If there are concerns, what we want to do is make sure that everyone's feeling principally assured that there's a lot of people working on this and a lot of governance in place, and everyone all the way up to chief executive level is taking this incredibly seriously. But if there are queries or concerns, do reach out to the team. The contact detail is on that intranet site. We'll certainly come back to you, try to get the specific answers or point you in direction as to where those are and when those are. As always, this is hopefully people have noticed, and I certainly know people talking to me, they've noticed the ramp up of communications, and that's quite a deliberate ploy for when we should be calming out, and that communication start to ramp up even further. So thank you everybody for your time, for joining us today, and feel free to reach out, and we're always happy to take any questions and queries there may be.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks very much, Craig and Amy. Thanks for the presentations. For everyone else on the call, like I said at the beginning, we've recorded this. We will subtitle it and put it up on YouTube. So please, if you have any colleagues asking any questions, direct them in a couple of weeks to YouTube so that they can listen to this back and hopefully have some questions and queries answered. Next month, December, first Friday, we are covering the data dictionary. So there'll be an update on what's happening with that, and publishing for everyone across HSC. Some outside of the actual data role on producing and issuing out a data dictionary, so you can find out a little bit more about that next month. So thanks very much for everyone joining. Thank you, and we'll see you again in December. Thanks a lot. Cheers.